Mm. Hoping this here working. Let me see now. Here. I know this is a random time, 10:40 a.m., but what I want to do is come on here and sorry about that. I muted my microphone. Wanting to come on here and shoot this live so that way I don't have to record it and then upload it. So I know some of y'all work from home, but some of you gotta go into work. But wanted to come on here and do a little talk because I and it's an open chat, not just the blessed tribe, but wanted to come on here so we have other individuals in the chat. So y'all mind your manners if you're not in the blessed tribe, because a lot of times I go live, it's just only the blessed tribe can chat. And to join the blessed tribe, you'll see it under the video where it says join. But wanted to come on here and do like a follow up. I just did one on Instagram from the interview I posted yesterday on the community page that I had on the Know For Sure podcast. So this isn't a Q&A, just kind of like a recap of that interview. And it was very real. It was a real interview, and they were very welcoming and respectful. And for me, it was different getting outside of my element and going out and talking on a podcast that, talks about God and things of that nature, but could also be seen as secular because of, profanity and topics of conversation. But that's what, I don't judge anybody, and that's what I feel we are supposed to do, to go into different audiences and different places and spread a word. And Gloria, you might be coming in a little late. Some people watching this from the beginning where I had muted my thing. So y'all forgive me. Can y'all hear me right now though? Because Gloria probably talking about, she probably watching it from the beginning. And so if you can hear me right now, I'm not going to be really paying too much attention to the chat. Okay. All right. And we got a lot of new people in here who not in the blessed tribe, because the option today didn't give it to me. Normally when I go live, I can just put only members, but for some reason YouTube changed their settings from the phone, from the app. So this everybody in the chat. So y'all forgive them who may not know how this works. But on there, I was looking, and what I do sometimes is try to see what the comments say just so I can address some of the things. And the first thing I will say is when a conversation is directed to a certain gender, we need to sit in that and let it be that. So the young lady asked me, B. Simone asked me, do all men cheat? She didn't ask me, do all humans cheat? She didn't ask me, do men and women cheat the same? She said, do all men cheat? And so in answering that question, I'm addressing men. But a lot of times what happens is when we do that, it's always people who say, well, what about the women, and do women cheat? And all of those things. So it's kind of like, you know, hold on quick. Dang, here acting up. Be real. Please don't come on here promoting people's stuff. We don't. I don't know who the people you're talking about, and so, you know, don't y'all come on here promoting just random people, because you taking my live and you driving people to somebody I don't even know, and so that ain't what we do here. And that's normally why just the blessed tribe in here commenting, because people outside of the blessed tribe don't really understand the mission and the message over here. So if you're not familiar with the chat, just don't say nothing in the chat. Just kind of watch the video, and it's all right for y'all to listen, and instead of feeling like you have to chat or be in the chat. And so what we have to get to the point is where we can start to sit in what we sitting in. So if the message for the men, let it be for the men. If the message for the women, let it be for the women. Because until we can have that individual accountability, we can't really get anywhere. We can't really do anything, because as long as men are blaming women and women are blaming men, we just running in circles. We stand in the same place. So understand that. Another thing that was misunderstood is what tapping into purpose means. And tapping into purpose does not mean just being out in the streets serving the homeless. Tapping into purpose could mean being a stand-up man, a good father for your children. A husband could be your purpose. Your job could also be your purpose. Your life and just leaving a legacy could be your purpose. And to be tapped in means that you have discipline, you have self-love, you have self-control. And that's what a lot of people didn't understand. And people were saying, oh, it means, it means to be faithful, you got to have self-love, you got to have discipline. That's what tapping into purpose means. It's one and the same. And that's the thing, that until men come to a place, and I don't believe this is true for women, because a lot of people say women cheat just as much as men. And typically the only people who say that are cheating women, like loose women, and men who have been cheated on. They've been hurt. But one thing you won't hear a man who has played the field, a man who has been out in the field and tried to sleep with multiple women, you won't hear, and multiple women meaning women of all races and classes and all those different things, you won't hear those men say women cheat just as much as men. Because if you've ever been that guy, then you know how many times you got turned down because a woman says, I have a boyfriend or I have a husband, and she gone about her business. And so once you understand that, then you start to see, you start to realize that that's not true. But how many women have you talked to who have told you, hey, men cheat less than women, meaning she's tried to talk to men, and men have turned her down over and over and over because they said, I have a girlfriend. You don't oftentimes see that. And that's where we need to get to. I saw a guy in the comments, he was saying that if the two hosts told me they want to do this or do that to me, that I wouldn't have turned that down. And that's our problem in our society, is that we don't even believe that men could be faithful. We don't even believe that men can grow, that men could change. And some people come and they say, well, oh, how you get married and then, you go to cold turkey. And in the interview, I talked about my first 2 years of marriage. It's like that weaning off period, like that period where you still in limbo, that period where you still wondering, hey, is this for me? Is this marriage for me? Never in there did I say I cheated on my wife or I was a cheater. I said them first 2 years is where I still was learning and growing, and kind of went through explaining that. But a lot of times we don't really listen and pay attention to that. And that's where we have to be real at, because the problem that hurts so many relationships, and the reason why so many relationships come to an abrupt end, is because of the fairy tales. So the fairy tales that we have, where people come and they are in a place of, they don't understand, where they cannot see the reality of love. And so they come into a relationship and women just think that, oh, a man is just automatically, because he got married, he's automatically going to be faithful, and faithfulness is going to be easy. and that because he loves me, he sees nothing else, he feels nothing else, and all of those things, and that's not real. So it's important that we understand the realities of human beings so that when you go into a relationship, you actually can communicate about those things. I've had so many women that come to me and say, well, Tony, if a man is attracted to another woman outside of his wife, doesn't that mean that he doesn't love her? And for a woman to ask that question, it lets me know that that's how she feels. That when she falls in love with a man, no other man catches her eye, or is she attracted to them in that way? And maybe that's for her. I know other women will say otherwise for themselves. But as humans, we all can see attraction. It doesn't mean we want to sleep with somebody. It doesn't mean we're going to approach to somebody. It doesn't mean we're going to give our phone number out or anything like that. But as men and women, as humans, we all can see attraction. So married or not. And it's good that we can be real. And that's a place that even I had to come to and understand too, is that I'm human, my wife is human, and I got to be understanding about that. So I can't be in this fairy tale mindset to think that my wife is not going to think any other man is handsome. And just because she thinks a man is handsome doesn't mean she wants to sleep with him, doesn't mean she wants to be with him. And that's where we have to come to that place and that realization of really having real conversations. But we live in a world today where couples are so, a lot of couples with a platform are so into monetization and trying to monetize love that when you're just focused on monetizing love, you can't really be real about real feelings and real struggles and what we really go through. And then that hurts us, that hinders us in our relationship building, because then singles assume that marriage is just supposed to be easy and perfect, or that it's supposed to just be a nightmare. And it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be just one or the other. And it definitely doesn't have to be a nightmare, but you do, as humans, still have to learn and grow and heal and communicate. And these are the things that we have to learn and understand and come to that place to where we can be respectful of our own process and also respectful of our spouse's process. And there's a lot of times where we don't want to hear the truth. We don't want to accept the truth. We don't want to confront the truth because the truth requires change. The truth is painful at times. And there are times where we got to evaluate ourselves. So even on the podcast, we talked about profanity. And there were a lot of women who mentioned the young lady's profanity. Well, that's very common in our society. Like, I'm sitting around quote unquote Christian school teachers, Christian female school teachers, and they're cursing. They're using profanity. Like, you see people who never seen a hood in their life using profanity, never seen a struggle in their life using profanity. We live in a very profane world. And so I address that because when you tap into righteousness and you tap into purity and you believe that there is a Holy Spirit and you believe that this Holy Spirit is residing in you, then at that point, you no longer can use profanity because you don't feel comfortable mixing the sacred with the profane. But when you are not operating from that spirit and you don't have that spirit living within you, it's very easy to be profane because you don't feel any type of conviction. And so I address that because that's where I want to see us grow to the point that we can be role models for children 24/7, to where we can grow and we can heal and we can learn and we can change those things that don't benefit our life. And so a lot of times we have to ask ourselves, is this smoking adding years to my life? Is this masturbation adding years to my life? Is this drinking adding years to my life? Is this cursing adding years to my life? and the things that do not benefit us, that we start to decrease those things or completely remove those things, so that we come to a place where we are growing. Because if you're not growing, then you're dying. And so this is what we have to start to really process and understand. And I want to get out there and share a different message, and that's why I'm talking. This is not something I want to do. It's not something that's fun for me. I'm a lot of days like, Lord, pass this cup. Like, can I do something else? Can I talk about something else? But we got to go where we're needed, and we got to address what needs to be addressed. And in this time and in this season, it's so much misinformation. It's so much misdirection. It's so much conversation around love and relationships that are so skewed and jaded, and not really understanding what it is and what it takes to have a happy and healthy relationship. And knowing that even in that, it's going to be a lot of rough times. It's going to be a lot of low moments. It's going to be a lot of times where you feel like throwing in the towel. And I even talked about that, which people think that you get to a certain year. Oh, you get to year 10, you get to year 15, you get to year 20. Everything from there is gravy. It's easy. That's not the case, because life always presents new challenges and new changes. And in those times, you never know how you're going to react or respond to what's going on in your life. And so you can be married 30 years and still get a divorce, because at that 30-year mark, the woman may start to go through menopause, or the man may start to go through a midlife crisis, and everything changes in the relationship. And it pushes you to a divorce because you didn't see it coming. You weren't prepared for it. You weren't thinking about it like that, and you didn't know how to handle it. So love is a job. It's not a vacation. Love is a job that we cannot retire from. We have to get up, and that's a quote that I wrote a decade ago. We have to get up and we got to go to work every single day. And you got to try and you got to grow every single day. You got to put in the work and you got to be about it every single day. And it does not get easier. It just gets different. It changes. And I was naive to that even in the beginning of my marriage and early on in my marriage. And when I started speaking and teaching, I would say stuff like, oh, love is easy. Oh, relationships are easy. And I would say that just because of the mind space I was in, and I wasn't having no problems. But then as I went on and I started to see life change, and I started to see the different things that happen in life and see different challenges, then I learned. And that's why I say none of us have all the answers, because the more we go, the more we learn. So someone who is single and giving advice, it doesn't mean that it's going to all be bad advice. It's just going to be limited advice. So when they get in a relationship, the advice is going to be different. When they get engaged, when they get married, and then when they get 5 years in, 10 years in, 20 years in, the advice is going to change, because the deeper you go, the more you see, the more you learn, the more you have to understand in order to survive. And so we have to get to that place of understanding that there will always be another lesson. And it's important to have different voices. It's important to, be out there and be able to hear these things, but we got to understand what we know and what we don't know, and know where we are, and be wise enough to know when we should just listen and give things a try if what we've been trying hasn't been working out for us. And so for me, I want to see more men tap into purpose. Tap into purpose and give faithfulness a try. Give a relationship a try. I want to see more men meet women and get to know a woman and start to build with a woman and really be honest and genuine with that woman. I really want to see more men tap into love, because whether you have kids with a woman or you adopt kids with a woman, being a man and being in your relationship and doing what you're supposed to do, you're touching and changing the world, and you're leaving a legacy that will outlive you. And the children that you reach will go on to do things in our society that'll move the story forward. And that's what we need more men to do, to stop running from the grind, to stop running from the work, to stop running from the discipline that it requires. And no one is better than anyone else. No one is on a high horse. We talking and we trying to build and we're sharing experiences, hoping that we can learn from each other. And that's what has to be understood. I feel like a lot of times men get to the point they feel like they're being talked down to, but then are very quiet when there are men talking down to women. But even talking in a tone just like this, but speaking truth to power, a lot of men feel attacked or feel bashed because they're being asked to be responsible, to be accountable, to man up, to be faithful to one woman, to stop lying and cheating and manipulating and deceiving. A lot of men feel attacked by that, when all it is just a call to better, a call to greatness, a call to excellence. And one of the things that women need to stop doing is to stop coddling men and stop making excuses for men. I saw a lot of women who looked at the little short clip and were like, oh, we're just going to act like women don't cheat. And it's like, we're not talking about women in this segment, in this piece, in this moment. And one of y'all sent me a video of a guy. He was saying that men aren't allowed to have standards in our world, and that women say they want a man 6 foot or taller, but then when a man says he wants a younger woman, it's a problem, and that men can't even say that. And yes, it is a problem when men say that, but it's also a problem when a woman says that she wants a man 6 foot or taller. And so the same thing that I say to men, I say to women, in the sense of, you can't ask for a preference and then be sensitive when someone has a preference that does not prefer you. So if you want to be accepted for who you are and where you are, then you have to have that same mentality when you're looking for somebody. And it's so often I see people who are not where they're supposed to be, and they want somebody who is where they want to be. So they're here and complacent, but they want somebody who's living the life of their dreams, and expect that person who's living their dreams, not the person's dreams, but the person who is seeking, they're in the place of where this person wants to be. And so they want to be with that person. But that person over there is saying, hey, you're not where you need to be. You're not doing what you need to do. So how do you expect me to compromise for you? And that's truth in that. And that's why I tell women all the time, when you want a man that's 6 foot tall with a six pack and 6 figures or 6 inches, you might end up with a devil on your hands, because you picking a man just based on preferences. But you should let his character be his currency and see who he is. What are his morals? What are his values? What does he stand on? Does he live by that? Does he really live it? And then go from there. Because a lot of the other things, the aesthetics, those things could be changed. Those things, we could learn how to dress. We could learn how to eat right. We could learn how to lose weight. But it's hard as an adult to change your whole identity if you're a terrible person. If you have bad character, that's a lot harder to change than it is to go to the gym and get in some shape, or to eat right and lose some weight. And so we got to start really identifying and paying attention to, what are we looking for? And what we're looking for, does that matter in the grand scheme of things? And so when character becomes currency, that's when we really start to see. And so that's what we have to understand that. Ryan, God bless you. And Jana, welcome to the Blessed Tribe. So it's some real stuff out here that got to be addressed. And what I want y'all to understand is to understand that it's a lot of wolves. It's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. And it's a lot of men and women who are misleading the people. And they're doing it because they want to be significant. They want to be famous. They want to be seen. They want to be known. And they know that they don't know what they're talking about. And they know that they're not living what they're talking about. But money and fame and quote unquote significance means more. And so we have to be mindful of that. Be very mindful of that. And you have to use discernment when you're listening to people and make sure that you can sense and that you can feel that they're living what they're teaching and that it's adding up. Because, people, it was women who were saying, oh, what if his wife sees this? When I said that my first 2 years of marriage, I still had wondering eyes. And it's like, I'm going on 16 years of marriage. I'm on the public internet. You don't think my wife know that? But one thing I've always been with my wife, and what it has helped her is it has helped her minister to her friends, because I've always been so transparent with my wife that she's able to go to her friends and say, Tony says this. Tony says this about men. Tony says this is what men feel. This is what men go through, because I'm being transparent with her. Never being with her in a way to making her think that men have this angelic experience without temptation and without struggle, and that once a man gets married, his wife is the only woman that he recognizes or sees for the rest of eternity, and that this switch just automatically turns off. And that's what some men try to allude to, and that's what some women think, and that's not real. So we have to make sure that we're getting the realness. And to the men and women who are talking, but you're not living it, what I'm asking you is to shut up. If you hear this and you are giving advice and you're not living it behind closed doors, and you know that you're giving advice or you talking out of the side of your neck for money and for clout, I'm asking you to shut up. And the reason why I'm asking you to shut up is not just for the good of the people, but for your own safety. Because one thing that people don't understand is spiritual warfare. And when you are operating in a spiritual realm, meaning when you are shifting the way people think and the way people live, that is, you go into a realm of good versus evil. And if your message does more harm than help, if your message does more harm than help, now you become susceptible to being touched. What I mean by that is spiritual warfare oftentimes operates and shows up in the physical, because eventually the vessels who are carrying evil end up devouring themselves or being devoured. Because what the adversary does is he uses vessels. But because he comes to steal and to kill and to destroy, when the vessel has been used, then the vessel will be destroyed. It's almost like a self-detonating device. So this is what I want you to understand, because it's very dangerous. And a lot of times when people don't really know God and they don't really fear God, like I heard a gentleman talking on an interview, and he kept, he was talking about God and how he gave his life to God, but then he was cursing and he was using curse words in profane manner. And I'm like, that doesn't even add up, because you can't say God's name in vain and curse like that if you really rocking with the Lord, because it just will be a conviction in your spirit of mixing the sacred and the profane. And in that moment, I then knew he's playing with God. And when you play with God, it never turns out good. It never turns out good. you will get caught up. You will get exposed, or you will pay a grave price. And that grave price could be in your grave. And, we lost a gentleman who was from what I call the other side, because our message, contradict each other. And he lost his life in what seemed to be the midst of sin, with a woman that he wasn't married to, and was living that life, not being married, but was also telling women, hey, be in fornication. If you go on a date, be ready to fornicate. If you go on a date after 5 p.m., be ready to fornicate. Telling women, hey, if you got a child, you need to be willing and ready to fornicate. So now what this message does in the spiritual world is it disrupts healthy relationships. It disrupts marriage. It derails what what God wants for his children, which is healthy, faithful, loving relationships. And when I saw that happening, I did a video and I said, listen, if you are upending the work of God, meaning if you are disrupting, derailing, distracting from the work of God, then you will pay a price. You will pay a price, because that is how the spiritual realm works. So you have to be mindful of what you're spreading. And so what a lot of people don't understand is that in God's word, the word is expressly against fornication. It's expressly against adultery. So when people go and they say the name of God, but then they also condone fornication or adultery, now you are making a mockery of God. And the good book says God will not be mocked. And so the reason why, although I realize that fornication is, or the abstinence, abstaining until marriage, although I realize that is extremely hard, and although a lot of people I know failed at it, I'm not going to condone it and promote it. I'm going to encourage people to fight the good fight. Win the battle that I lost. Win the battle that I lost. Win the battle that your mother or your father or your friends or this person or that person lost. Win that battle. I'm not going to tell people, hey, oh no, give in. Give in to sin, and just, it's okay to fornicate. And what a lot of people don't realize is that, and they say, oh, it doesn't make sense to save yourself to marriage, or oh, this right here doesn't make sense, or that doesn't make sense. But what they don't realize is, when you're instructing people to live a life of sin, then you're instructing them to ignore and disobey God. And when you do that, now you align. Y'all got to forgive me with the sound change. I got to plug my phone in. When you do that, you align with the adversary. So when you tell people, hey, it's okay to fornicate, or saving yourself till marriage is not realistic, and being with one woman is not realistic, you're then telling people to live the life that that Satan wants us to live. So now you are going to war against God. Now you are telling the whole world that you stand against God, and that having healthy, whole, faithful relationships, you are against that. And one thing that you don't want to do is to be misaligned with God, to be going against God, to be going against the productivity that we are expected to have as humans. You don't want to do that. So, and this is what I tell people. Like, they showed the NFL player who had the jacket on at the Super Bowl, the one who almost lost his life from the hard hit. And then he wore a jacket that was like mocking Jesus, and had a picture of Jesus and little weird cartoon of Jesus, and it said eternal on there. And it's like, I was telling my son, I said, I don't believe, I'm not Buddhist, but I don't mock Buddha. I'm not Muslim, but I don't mock Allah. I'm not, Hindu, but I don't mock their religion, because somebody believes in that. And I don't know or understand what they believe, and I don't know how real it is for them. It's not my thing, but I'm not going to mock it. But people will literally mock Jesus Christ, and will mock Christianity, and will mock God because they don't believe. So they'll call God a fairy tale. They'll say Jesus wasn't the Son of God. They'll, say these things, but it's like, listen, you don't know that for sure. And if you see millions of people who have good head on their shoulder, good brains, good, all of this right here, then you can't take and mock that. And so this is something that has to be said. Somebody say representing Jesus or mocking. He was mocking them because it was a caricature of Jesus. And looking all funny face, funny this and that. And that ain't how, you don't take and represent something in a light that makes it look bad or makes it look silly. You don't become a hindrance to your brethren. But that right there, is the same mindset that a lot of people have. And so that's what there were people saying, oh, well, you're supposed to go to him in private and you're not supposed to judge him and all of this. And so we have this very watered down approach today where we're just so afraid. We're so afraid, and we're afraid to stand for truth. We're afraid to live righteous. We're afraid to be better. We're afraid to stand on what we stand on. And that's what is destroying the fabric of society. And even as parents, it's hard for us because there's so many parents who don't have common sense. There's so many parents who don't know how to parent. And so they're raising their children to do whatever they want to do. So then for those of us who want to raise our children with standards and with morals and with values, we start to look crazy because we asking our children to do things that no other kids that they know are doing. And we're asking them to live in a way that is not common. And so that narrow road becomes a lot harder to walk down than the broad road. But that's something that we still have to stick to. And we got to stand on what we stand on. And we got to be willing to do what's right, regardless of who's not doing it. And so here's the thing, is in the spiritual realm, there are things that, spirits that oppose, and there are spirits that repel. So what happens is, and a lot of times people ask and they say, well, Tony, why don't you go on more podcasts? Or why aren't you on this podcast or this radio show? And the reason why is because I'm not invited on those shows. And the reason being is because a lot of shows cannot share a message that stands on something. They have to cater to everyone because they don't want to offend certain audiences. So they have to cater to everybody. So when you stand on something, you become a liability to those outlets that don't want to say the name of God or the name of Jesus, that don't want to give a message that is going to move the family forward. And then also sometimes it's the spiritual alignment of the host. So if there are hosts who they are not aligned with righteousness, and they don't want to be, then they're not going to bring someone who they feel is aligned differently and is going to confront or convict them, because they don't want to even sit in that. And then also, there are spirits and things that cannot be introduced, because what a pure spirit does, when you are operating in a pure spirit, you become the light in darkness. So when you go on your job, when you and your family, when you at the family reunion, when you at church, you become a light in the darkness if there's darkness around you. And so what happens is, Andriana, God bless you. So what happens is, let's say a man has this podcast and he is cheating on his wife, or they're going through a really tough time. And when he looks at my message, or someone like me, he looks at our message and he sees that all of this messaging would convince his wife to leave, would tell her, you're not being loved right, you're not being respected, you're not being treated right, and that because of that, she may leave. So he will not bring me on his podcast because he doesn't want to condone or stamp or promote my message, because it could upend his own situation. And so that's why you'll mostly see women bring me on their outlet, because if I'm speaking on manhood and a man being gentle and loving and faithful, it's not going to offend the woman. It ain't going to step on a woman's toes. It's not going to upend her situation. But if a man is not living like that, and that's why I try to express and share that I was not living like that, that I had to learn, that my message comes from me learning, and I'm still learning. That's why I shared on the podcast that, hey, I still, last year was in spiritual warfare and going through and struggling and trying to make it and just trying to carry, this weight. And so we have to understand that. We got to understand that and come to a place to realize that this isn't about being judgmental or anything of that nature. These messages, it's about us growing for the family, for the future, for society. And that's what we need. We need to be able to hold ourselves accountable, look ourselves in the mirror, and make the changes that need to be made. And so that's what I'm standing on, and that's what my goal is, my focus is. And so if I have to expose myself and, share my message and teach from that place, using myself as an example, then that's what I have to do. But I want to encourage everybody to look in the mirror. Stop pointing the blame, stop waiting on somebody else to change, and look in the mirror and see what you need to do for you. And watch how that changes your life. Watch that peace, that passive all understanding come over your life. So, hey, it's Tony Gaskins. God bless you. Thank y'all for popping on here. I really ain't expect nobody to be on here this time of morning. And I hope y'all ain't stealing time off the clock. And Malika, God bless you. And my boyfriend gave up smoking because your message resonated with him so well. That's deep. That's deep. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm praying for him, that he stay in the fight and he keep going. He did the right thing. And that's all it's about. It's just growing and just pressing to that next level and really looking and saying, hey, is this benefiting me? Or could I be doing something different? Could I be doing something better? And just growing in that way. And as you do that, you come to a place to where you start to reap the benefits. You start to reap the benefits of your sacrifices. And then once you reap the benefits of your sacrifices, it hits differently, because you like, whoa, this over here, this harvest is way greater than what I had before. And it takes some time to get there. It takes a while. And a lot of times you're going to question, should you have changed? Should you be sacrificing? Where's the reward? Where's the payoff? But it takes time. Because see, God ain't going to give you nothing just right away. because that time that it takes, you being refined, you being renewed, you being made whole, you being prepared for what's to come. Because if you get it too soon, it can destroy you. So that's what we got to understand. Hey, this Tony Gaskin. God bless you. And make sure y'all check out TonyGaskinAcademy.com. Everything I do that I know, life, love, and business, I put it on TonyGaskinAcademy.com. The whole blueprint, everything I know, every ounce of success I've had in life, love, or business, I put it on TonyGaskinAcademy.com. And this Saturday, we having a bonus session for our group coaching program. So it's called the Growth Club. You'll see it right on TonyGaskinAcademy.com. You'll see the Growth Club. So y'all join us in the monthly group coaching. Nancy, God bless you. Appreciate that blessing. It means a lot. God bless you, and we'll talk soon.